My sister attempted to steal our dad's $800,000 beach property using her real estate license when he still owned it. She had already put it up for rent. Hello, everyone. In a nutshell, today's story will blow your mind. If you like this content, please click the subscribe button. Recently, the channel has been a little quiet, but your support keeps it continuing. Let's get started. I'm 28 years old, and I never imagined writing something like this, but I feel like I'm going crazy. Therefore, I need advice. My sister, Sarah, 30, has been employed at a fairly successful real estate company in our city since obtaining her license 2 years ago. We were all proud of her at first. This felt like a perfect fit for her career path, which she had struggled to find after college. After his brother died last year, our father, Robert, 60, acquired a beach house. It's a simple 2-bedroom house on a lovely piece of property with views of the ocean, but it's only around 40 minutes from the city. Uncle Thomas's passing upset Dad, and the beach house served as an emotional bulwark for him. He spends most weekends there to work on modest projects, go fishing, and simply think of his brother. This is where things start to get strange. Sarah began bringing up the beach house during our Sunday family dinners approximately 3 weeks ago. Small things initially. How recently did you get the roof inspected, Dad? Or is it really necessary to reseal that deck before winter arrives? Typical thing. I assumed that since she is now involved in real estate, she would be aware of these things. Then it got out of hand. She began visiting her father's home with experts, contractors, and inspectors who she said could assist in determining the state of the property. The help was welcomed by Dad, who is trustworthy and, to be honest, a little overwhelmed by the upkeep of 2 residences since Mom went away 5 years ago. During dinner last week, Sarah gave Dad a folder. The expression on his face as he turned through it is something I will always remember. In what she described as a thorough property study, she portrayed the beach house as a potential catastrophe. Her reports indicated that there were worrying fissures in the foundation. It was an electrical system that was dangerously old. The deck was a liability lawsuit waiting to happen, and the plumbing was about to collapse catastrophically. She said, "Dad," in that worried tone she's mastered. Dad looked devastated and asked how much it would cost to fix everything. Sarah sadly shook her head. As a real estate professional, I can't in good conscience let you continue managing this property alone. You're putting yourself at serious financial and legal risk. We're looking at a minimum of $75,000, probably closer to $100,000, to bring it up to code. And that's if we start immediately before things get worse. I asked to see the inspection reports, but Sarah became defensive. Then she dropped her proposal, which was to transfer the property to her professional management company, which I later found out she had only registered 2 months ago. She would take care of all repairs, maintenance, and, the best part, any rental income when Dad wasn't using it. This way, you can still enjoy the house without the stress and liability. I'll make sure it's properly maintained and even generates income to cover its costs. Joshua, I don't think you understand the complexities of property management and real estate law. I'm trying to protect our father. What if someone gets hurt on that deck? What if there's an electrical fire? You could lose everything, not just the beach house, but your primary residence too. Dad, looking defeated, said he needed time to think. Sarah pushed harder. After dinner, I pulled Dad aside and told him something didn't feel right and suggested we get a second opinion. He nodded but seemed overwhelmed. Maybe Sarah's right. Maybe I'm in over my head. Your mother always handled these things. I went home angry but unsure of what to do. If someone sues, I watch my father, a man who built his own business from nothing and who raised us alone after Mom died, shrink into his chair. Maybe you're right, he said quietly. I don't know anything about these things. My stomach turned when I started reading up on property transfers, real estate law, and something called undue influence. The way Sarah was using her professional authority to put pressure on her father and create this sense of urgency fit patterns of financial elder abuse. I called my friend Michael, whose father works as a contractor, and asked if he would come look at the beach house with me in private. Yesterday, we drove out there, and Michael's assessment was entirely different from Sarah's reports. I'm writing this because I'm not sure what to do. Sarah has Dad convinced he's sitting on a powder keg. She has scheduled a meeting with her company lawyer next week to draft the transfer papers. Josh, this place is in decent shape for its age. Sure, it could use some updates, but there's nothing urgent here. That deck, she said, was dangerous. It's solid cedar. Maybe it needs a new coat of stain. The foundation. I see one hairline crack that's probably been there for 20 years. Totally normal settling. I heard her on the phone last week discussing that beachfront property and how it would be ideal for redevelopment once we clear the old structure. She doesn't know I heard her, but she told me it's the responsible thing to do and that she's giving up her time to help the family. Am I crazy for thinking my sister is attempting to steal our father's inheritance? How can I protect my dad without ruining our family? He has complete faith in Sarah, who has always been the responsible one, the one with a professional career, and I'm just the younger brother who works there. Thank you to everyone who responded to my initial post. Your comments gave me the courage to take action, and I need to give you an update because it's gotten so much worse. I hired an independent inspector who had nothing to do with Sarah or her real estate agency, as advised by many of you, and the report came back exactly as my contractor friend suspected. I feel like I'm watching a slow-motion train wreck and don't know how to stop it. In contrast to Sarah's $100,000 disaster scenario, the beach house is in good condition for a 40-year-old property. The inspector discovered one small foundation crack, which was cosmetic rather than structural, an electrical system that is outdated but fully functional and code compliant, plumbing that exhibits normal wear but no immediate concerns, and a deck that needs to be resealed but is structurally sound. The total recommended repairs were approximately $8,000, mostly optional updates. Armed with this information, I attempted to speak with Dad once more. Perfect timing, Josh, Sarah said with a smile that stopped short of her eyes. We were just going over the transfer documents. When I got to his house, Sarah was already there with a man she introduced as her business partner, Kevin, and papers scattered across Dad's dining room table. We're prepared to go after Kevin gave Dad a thorough explanation. I requested to view the paperwork. I tried to remain calm as I said, Dad, do you understand you'd no longer own Uncle Thomas's house? Dad looked perplexed, but Sarah paused and then slid them over with obvious reluctance. What I read chilled me to the bone. This wasn't just a management agreement, but a complete transfer of ownership to Sarah's company with a vague clause about Dad retaining lifetime usage rights subject to property management discretion. I read from the document. It's a technicality for liability purposes. Dad still gets to use the house whenever he wants. Sarah's mask briefly slipped. I'm doing this for Dad's benefit. Unlike you, I actually understand real estate. Kevin interrupted with legalese about liability protection and tax benefits. But when I pressed for details about Dad's access rights, things became heated. Why are you trying to confuse him? Sarah snapped. I'm doing this for Dad's benefit. I don't have to justify myself to you. Sarah gathered the papers. That inspector doesn't know the property's history. My contacts have deeper knowledge of coastal properties. Then let's see their licenses and qualifications. Sarah listened, crying silently, until he finished, and she said something that surprised us both. You know how Mom used to say that money shows who people really are? I assumed she meant that it shows who's successful. The psychiatrist later informed us that Sarah had been diagnosed with severe anxiety and depression, probably exacerbated by the pressure she'd put herself under to succeed in real estate. We all knew that this didn't excuse what she did, but it gave some context. After being released, Sarah entered an intensive outpatient program and began working a minimum wage job at a grocery store to pay for her restitution. I now understand that she meant it shows your character, and mine is broken. The story takes an unexpected turn when we hear from one of the families she defrauded, the Johnsons, an elderly couple who had lost $3,500. They wanted to do something special after learning about Sarah's hospitalization and offered to forgive her debt if she spoke about her experience at their church. Everyone deserves a chance at redemption, Mrs. Johnson told us, and maybe her story will prevent someone else from making the same mistakes. I attended that church talk, and Sarah said yes. I targeted the most sacred thing in my family. Trust, she said, her voice trembling. I weaponized my professional credentials against my own father. If you're here considering taking advantage of an elderly relative, please understand that you'll destroy more than their finances. You'll destroy your soul. It was painful to watch my sister stand in front of 200 people and describe her fall from grace, her betrayal of family, and her descent into criminal behavior. But she didn't hold anything back. During her talk, a number of people shed tears, and after she told a young man that he had been planning something similar with his grandmother's property, he changed his mind after hearing Sarah's story. This marked the beginning of Sarah's long journey to redemption. She now speaks about elder financial abuse on a regular basis at churches, senior centers, and community groups, and she doesn't sugarcoat her role. She calls herself a reformed predator and warns families about the strategies she employed. As for our family relationship, it's complicated. I see glimpses of the daughter I raised, but I also see the scars of who she became. That boundary remains firm. The house is thriving under Dad's care. We've made some updates. That deck finally got resealed, and the rental income has covered all the maintenance costs. Dad has started to forgive her, but trust is another matter entirely. They have coffee once a month, always in public places. We exchanged texts on her birthday last month. The legal drama is largely over. Kevin was found guilty on several counts of fraud and conspiracy. Perhaps it's because I saw him fall apart under her influence, or perhaps it's because she threatened his competence. Maybe it's because I can't forget that calculated coldness in her voice when she realized her scheme was failing. Dad donated the excess to a local elder advocacy group. Sarah testified against him as part of her plea deal, describing how he trained her to identify vulnerable targets and create false urgency. The beach house remains as strong as ever. Dad and I were there last weekend, fishing off the pier Uncle Thomas built 20 years ago. The sunrise was spectacular, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. He has been permanently barred from real estate development and is serving 3 years in federal prison. What would Thomas say about all of this, do you know? This is where the story ends, but life goes on. Sarah still has 8 months of probation left and has to pay years in restitution. Dad asked abruptly, so I waited. He said the house did its job, revealing what needed to be revealed and protecting what needed to be protected. He paused, then smiled sadly, and he probably made some joke about Sarah learning the true cost of waterfront property. We both laughed, despite the pain. They're calling it Sarah's Law, but Dad insisted on keeping her name out of it, saying that she's paid enough and that the law should do its good without adding to her shame. She will never work in real estate again, and the family she attempted to break up is gradually, carefully finding new forms. Dad has turned into a fierce advocate for elder financial protection and is working with state legislators on a bill that would require additional documentation and independent counsel for property transfers involving seniors. The patterns are nearly always the same. Create urgency, claim expertise, isolate from other family members, and push for quick decisions. If you take anything away from our story, it's this: trust your instincts. If something feels off about a family member's sudden interest in property or finances, look into it. Don't let fear of family conflict keep you from raising concerns. I assisted an elderly man just last week in realizing that his grandson's sudden interest in his finances wasn't benign. Sarah will always be stuck with her decisions. The beach house she so desperately wanted will never be hers again. The father whose trust she betrayed will never fully recover, and the momentary discomfort of asking difficult questions is nothing compared to the destruction of financial abuse. If you're thinking about taking advantage of a family member's trust, please realize that whatever you gain in money, you'll lose 1,000-fold in everything that truly matters. Her birth family was forever altered. There are no winners in family financial abuse. Only survivors are trying to rebuild. I am grateful to everyone who has followed this journey. Your early support and guidance gave me strength when I needed it most. You saved not just a house, but the heart of our family. Take care of your elders, protect their assets and dignity, and never let anyone, family or not, hurry them into financial decisions. The beach house is still standing, Uncle Thomas's memory is honored, and Dad is safe. That is victory enough. I pulled out the independent inspection report, then explained why this licensed inspector found none of the major issues your reports claimed. The room fell silent, and Sarah's face flushed. These aren't even close to saying the same thing, he remarked slowly after she and Kevin hurried off. I sat with Dad and handed him both inspection reports side by side, and for the first time, I saw a wrath flash in his eyes. Over the course of the following hour, we carefully reviewed Sarah's reports. At that moment, we became aware of something unsettling. Photocopies of the signature pages were used. Additionally, upon closer inspection, we discovered that the firm names differed slightly from those of actual local companies. Coastal Property Inspections, LLC rather than Coastal Property Inspectors Incorporated, which is the legal name. Disconnected lines were the result of the phone numbers. Dad's hands trembled. She made these up. It wasn't the worst finding, though. After looking through real estate documents, I discovered that Sarah's business partner, Kevin, had a past. He has signed away significant real estate for management purposes in 3 prior property transfers involving elderly owners. The properties were sold for substantial gains in each instance within 6 months. There was still one case pending. I showed the records to my father. He sagged down in his seat. "My daughter," he muttered. "How was she able to do this? That house was left to me by Thomas. He put his trust in me." That night, we decided to speak with an elder law attorney, and I would assist him in protecting all of his crucial paperwork. Dad also made the quick decision to alter the beach house's locks. Sarah sent me a ton of SMS the following morning. She said I was jealous of her success, that I didn't understand complicated real estate tactics, and that I had poisoned Dad against her. As the day wore on, the texts became more and more hostile. The voicemail that followed chilled me. "Josh, you don't realize what you've done. I'll have to look into other measures to safeguard Dad's interests if you continue to meddle in the management of his assets. Don't force me to show that he lacks the ability to make these choices." She is threatening to accuse her father of being inept. "My father is sharper than most individuals half his age, still operates his business, and owns 2 properties. In order to obtain that beach property, she is prepared to ruin him." All of the voicemails and texts have been backed up. "Tomorrow is our lawyer's appointment, but I'm afraid of what Sarah might do next. She is aware that the beach home is worth $800,000 in today's market, and a developer would likely be willing to pay more to demolish it for the land. Following the lawyer's meeting, we'll provide another update. I am grateful to everyone who helped me recognize this before it was too late." The second update. The lawyer's encounter 2 weeks later was a game changer. Elizabeth Chun, an expert in elder law and financial abuse issues, met with us. She gave us a serious look after going over everything, including the phony inspection reports, Kevin's property records, and the threatening texts. This is an obvious instance of professional authority being used to attempt financial elder abuse. We filed a complaint against Sarah with the State Real Estate Licensing Board that same day after she stated, "We need to act quickly." Elizabeth said that she might lose her license due to the falsified inspection reports alone. Although they stated that it would be difficult to demonstrate criminal intent in the absence of the actual transfer, we nonetheless filed a police report. This is where things started to become wild. Sarah arrived at Dad's house at 7 in the morning, 2 days after the complaints were filed. We were both worried about what she may do, so I had remained the night. She was banging on the door and yelling that we were destroying her career because of a miscommunication. Sarah pushed past us into the house as soon as Dad answered, with me immediately following her. "How could you notify the licensing board about me? I am your daughter. I was attempting to assist you." God bless him. "Dad, you stood tall by trying to steal my brother's house and by making up inspection reports." Tears streamed down Sarah's cheeks. "You have no idea how much strain I'm under." According to Kevin, many families follow this usual procedure for taxation. "This business relationship is my whole investment. If this transaction fails, what's the matter?" I inquired. The truth emerged through her tears. Kevin's development business had already been promised the land by Sarah. She had utilized the $50,000 advance they had granted her to invest in the partnership. Getting her license, working with Kevin, and deciding to target the beach house were all part of the months-long planning process. Family trust has been her go-to source for ease. She sobbed, "I can't pay them back." Dad's expression changed from one of anger to one of despair as Kevin said, "I signed a partnership agreement that states that I will owe them $200,000 in penalties if I don't deliver the property. You sold out your family for money." I took out my phone to record. "Sarah, are you admitting you created false inspection reports to convince Dad to transfer the property?" She realized what I was doing and fell silent, then said in a chilly voice I had never heard from her before, "You've destroyed my life. You'd still get to use the house. I'd make sure of it. And once they developed the adjacent lots, your property value would skyrocket. You too, when I lose everything, my business, my license, and my future. I hope all is well with you." After Sarah sent dozens of increasingly erratic messages, including one in which she claimed to know where Dad kept his spare key to the beach house, and that possession is 9/10 of the law, she left, slamming the door. Dad sank into his chair and sobbed, something I had never witnessed him do, not even at Mom's funeral. The following few days were a blur. Elizabeth assisted us in filing a restraining order. As soon as we arrived at the beach house, we discovered evidence that someone had been there. Drawers were open, papers were all over the place, And most unsettling of all, draft rental agreements with Sarah's company name were backdated to make it appear as though her father had already consented to let her handle rentals. A couple arrived, claiming to have responded to an online ad for a lovely beachfront rental and to have sent a $3,000 deposit to Sarah's company last week. Dad, being dad, offered to let them stay for free for a weekend once this mess was resolved. And that's when I realized how deep this went. Sarah hadn't just tried to steal the house. She had already been acting as if she owned it, taking deposits, making promises, and advertising rentals for next month. We had to tell this poor couple they'd been scammed, and they were devastated. They were on their anniversary trip. The next update came from Elizabeth. The real estate board had expedited their investigation given the evidence, and Sarah's broker had already terminated her association with their firm after they conducted their own investigation and discovered that she had been using their inspection contacts to create the fake reports. We contacted the police again with this new evidence, and this time they took it very seriously. Wire fraud, theft by deception. Sarah had gone from being unethical to criminal. Then, without warning, we received a call from Kevin on a recorded line with his lawyer. Kevin wanted to make a deal, saying that Sarah had misrepresented herself and that he believed she had legal access to the property. If we didn't pursue charges against him, he offered to forgive her debt and testify about her false promises. Elizabeth suggested that we let the prosecutors handle Kevin, saying that we should concentrate on protecting Dad and any other victims, which is where we are now. Sarah has not spoken, except through her lawyer, who is attempting to reach a plea agreement. We've installed security cameras at both properties, and Dad has begun the process of placing the beach house in an irrevocable trust to protect it from any future schemes. He named me as co-trustee, not because he doesn't trust himself, but because he says he never wants to be that vulnerable again. The prosecutor says she's looking at potential jail time, especially with the wire fraud charges from the rental deposits. Dad is doing better. He's angry and hurt, but determined. Thomas trusted me with that house, he told me last night. Update 3. 6 weeks later. The past 6 weeks have been quite the roller coaster, but I believe we're finally seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. First, the legal situation. Sarah was charged with wire fraud, attempted elder financial abuse, and theft by deception. For now, we're just trying to pick up the pieces and figure out how our family moves forward from this. I'll update when there's a resolution. She agreed to give up her real estate license permanently and not be able to work in any fiduciary capacity for 5 years. The restitution part was complicated. During the investigation, they discovered that she had taken deposits from 6 different families for vacation rentals totaling approximately $18,000 and that she had also received that $50,000 from Kevin's group. Her lawyer negotiated a plea deal, 18 months probation, 200 hours of community service, specifically with elder advocacy groups, and full restitution to all victims. The investigation found that Sarah had a pattern of using partnered real estate agents to target elderly property owners, and 3 other agents came forward with similar stories. The court ordered her to repay everything within a year. This is where it gets interesting. Sarah had to sell almost everything, including her condo, her car, her designer clothes, and her bags. It was strange to watch her move back into a studio apartment, and while I felt bad, I also thought about what she had attempted to do to her father. Kevin and his development group were scathed. The state attorney general opened a more thorough investigation after they were recruited with the promise of huge commissions for finding and securing properties from vulnerable owners. Kevin is facing serious charges, and his real estate development licenses are being reviewed. The hardest part has been our family dynamics. Sarah wrote a letter to her father through her lawyer, which I'll share a portion of because it demonstrates how far she's fallen and perhaps how she's starting to climb back. I know that saying sorry doesn't undo what I tried to do. I think about Uncle Thomas and how he trusted you with his home, and I'm disgusted that I tried to betray that trust. I think about how you raised me alone after Mom died, how you worked 2 jobs to pay for college, and how I can't believe I returned that love with betrayal. I let greed and desperation cloud everything you taught me about family and integrity. When Kevin showed me how much money we could make targeting inherited properties, I justified it by telling myself I'd make sure you were taken care of. The beach house is safe now. Dad read it multiple times. He hasn't responded yet, and I'm not pushing him either way. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm not sure I deserve it. I just wanted you to know that I understand what I nearly destroyed. and that I'll spend the rest of my life trying to be the daughter you deserved. I know you probably can't have me in your life right now. Maybe never. I understand. Just know that I love you, and I'm sorry, Sarah. We've started renting it out legally for a few weeks each summer to help with maintenance costs. And Dad did put it in the irrevocable trust with both of us as trustees. Dad personally screens each renter and has met some lovely families, including the couple who were scammed. They sent a lovely thank you card with pictures of them watching the sunset from the deck, but Dad refused to let them pay. In addition, Dad has been seeing a therapist to work through the betrayal, and he told me last week, the hardest part isn't what Sarah did. It's because I didn't anticipate it. How could it have escaped my notice that my own daughter had developed into such a person? There have been some unexpected positive outcomes. This experience has brought Dad and me much closer. We go to the beach house together most weekends now, fishing and working on projects. He's teaching me the maintenance stuff he learned from Uncle Thomas. I reminded him that he didn't miss it. He simply loved and trusted his daughter. That's not a character flaw. As for me, this whole experience has changed my perspective on a lot of things. It's become our healing place. Dad has also become somewhat of an advocate for elder financial abuse prevention. He spoke at a senior center last month about his experience, warning others about family members who might exploit professional credentials or create false urgency around property transfers. He was nervous, but 3 people came up to share similar stories after his talk, and one woman said it gave her the courage to question her nephew's sudden interest in her finances. Last but not least, I've begun volunteering with the same elder advocacy group where Sarah is doing her community service, making sure that our schedules don't conflict. I've learned that family financial abuse is incredibly prevalent and frequently goes unreported due to embarrassment or a fear of ruining family ties. I've also learned to trust my gut, that nagging feeling that something wasn't quite right about. Sarah's sudden interest in the beach house was worth listening to. All too often, we ignore these feelings in order to maintain harmony or to avoid casting a negative light on family. The beach house is more than safe now. Last week, we received a call from another of Uncle Thomas's old friends who had heard about what had happened and wanted to share something. It seems that Uncle Thomas had told him years ago that he was leaving the beach house to Dad specifically because Robert is the only member of the family who understands that it's not about the money, but about the memories. Dad broke down when he heard that. He knew. We've replaced the old welcome sign with one Dad made himself, which reads, "I don't know if Sarah will ever be part of our lives again." That's a bridge we'll cross if we come to it. For the time being, we're focused on healing, on honoring Uncle Thomas's memory, and on making sure this never happens to another family. It has come to represent tenacity and standing up for what's right, even when it means standing up to family. It's been 4 months since my last post, and while I wish I could say everything went perfectly, real life is more complicated than that. About 2 months ago, we received word that Sarah had been hospitalized after apparently having a breakdown at her community service placement. I debated whether to write this final update, but I feel like you all deserve to know how this story ultimately ended. Your initial responses gave me the courage to act when I might have stayed silent to keep the peace. You may have saved my father from losing not just a house, but a piece of his heart. She spent 3 weeks in inpatient psychiatric care due to the stress of losing everything, as well as feelings of shame and loneliness. Dad was torn, but he decided to visit her in the hospital after lengthy discussions with his therapist and me. I accompanied him for support, and I hardly recognized the woman in that hospital bed. Sarah had lost weight, her eyes were lifeless, and she appeared to have aged years and months. When she saw her father, she broke down completely. She kept saying, "I destroyed everything for money that doesn't even matter now." The conversation that followed was one of the hardest I've ever seen. Dad told Sarah about his pain, his sense of betrayal, and how he had questioned everything about how he raised her.